Okay, so for this exercise, we're going to be working on his scapular depressors, and we need to do this because he only has 3+ out of 5 strength, and we eventually want to progress him to being able to work them eccentrically so that he can pull the cutter down from the pulley. So the first one I'm going to have him do is just some wall angels, so focusing on stabilizing the scapula against the wall, slight chin tuck, and just going up and back down. And when he goes back down, gravity will assist him in the scapular depression. And so I would start with these. Eventually we could progress, once he has some more scapular stabilization, to doing some prone scapular depression. So he could lay on a table like this, take his arms, and then pull down, kind of like a lat pull down, but in prone. And he could also do this with the arms straight, unilateral or bilateral, once he gets some more scapular stabilization. After that, we would eventually progress to, and you could also add weight to that to make it harder. We would then progress to lat pull downs for strengthening them more so once his stabilization is down. So with this, you could use a TheraBand, or you could use weights with just a normal lat pull down bar. And I don't want to pull too hard because it'll come out, but he would ideally be sitting, and then you would have him pull, and then come back up slowly, and then pull. And so those would be my scapular depression exercises. The next exercise we're going to be working on is scapular retraction, and he has some decreased strength with this. He only has a 4 out of 5 in the retractors. And then he also demonstrates a forward head rounded shoulder or kyphotic posture. So we want to make sure when he's standing at his workstation, since he has to stand most of the day, that he can maintain a proper posture with those shoulders down and back, as to increase his range of motion, hopefully, in his shoulder and not cause him pain. So first we would just start with some isometric holds. So I would have him keep his elbows at his side, pull his elbows back, squeeze his shoulder blades together, keep those shoulders down, slight chin tuck, hold for 4 to 10 seconds, and then come out, starting at a couple reps, moving up to 10 or more, kind of for some endurance of those postural muscles. And then after that, we could actually use a TheraBand. So like this one, I don't have anything to attach it to, but we could just do a row with this. So if this was attached to something, pulling back, holding, and then slowly going back. And you could also increase the weight of the TheraBand, or you could do it with free weights such as dumbbells to make it a little more complex. So from there, I would have him lift something like a box. So I have this nice handbag here that is going to be our box. So you could have him take a box that's at waist level height, and you could have him pick up the box. It could start with nothing in it and then progress to a heavier box. And you would have him pull it back, focusing on those mechanics we focused on with the other exercises. And then you could have him put the box back on the shelf, or progressing to the next exercise I'll go into next, you could have him pull in, carry the box somewhere, and then put the box back down. And we eventually want him to get to about 40 pounds because that's how much he typically has to lift. That's how much like the tires and the tread and things get up to when he's lifting from waist height. So the next exercise we're going to be looking at is a farmer's carry, and this is important because throughout the day he's going to have to be walking and standing and lifting objects such as tread and tires of different weights and different sizes and shapes from one area to another area, and he typically has to ambulate about 5 feet between those areas repetitively throughout the day. So I would want to work on his loading, and doing a farmer's carry will also work on stabilizing his scapulas and strengthening them, or the muscles surrounding them. So these are my kettlebells or weights. So initially I would just have him hold them at his side, focusing on that depression and retraction of the shoulder girdle that we focused on earlier. And I would just have him do a normal walk, going 5 feet or more back and forth. To progress this, you could progress the weight with these. I would first do that bilaterally, so making them heavier. And then eventually you could give him a weight unilaterally and have him, when he's walking, correct his trunk lean. So if he's walking, you want him to maintain equal weight on both feet. To progress from here, you could do things like unilateral or bilateral overhead carrying, or carrying things at different heights. So you could do down here, here, by the shoulders, up more. And then you could incorporate the previous exercise by picking something up, retracting, and then carrying it somewhere, and then putting it back down. Yeah, so that's that exercise. So the next exercise is going to incorporate lifting, because he has to do a lot of different types of lifting throughout the day, from waist height like we talked about previously, and then also he has to be able to pick up things from the ground up to 60 pounds. So I would first want to make sure his mechanics are proper. So because he is demonstrating a posture like this, I want to focus on doing a squat where he has the right base of support, and then focusing on keeping his trunk erect and squatting down and coming back up. Once he did that, I would want to add some weight to it. So he could use like things like dumbbells and squat down and come back up. And then eventually I would want him to get to using something like a box full of weight up to 60 pounds. And so he could put this on the floor, and then I would want him to use proper lifting mechanics to come down, pick it up, and then come back up. And then with all of these, so with this, the farmer's carries, and the picking up objects, you could incorporate all of these. So you could have him lift up the object, bring it somewhere, put it down, pick it back up. And he's going to have to eventually be able to do 23 tires an hour. So with all three of these, you want to make sure that eventually you're increasing his speed so he can increase his efficiency during work and maintain the quota that he needs to keep his job. So the next exercise is going to address a little bit of his range of motion deficits and the pain he's having with overhead reaching and different shoulder activities. So initially, I would want to find the source for his pain and limited range of motion. And so I would just want to gradually grade his exposure back into full range of motion and hopefully decrease his pain as well through this. So I would actually first start with wall slides, and what he's having pain and limitations with is abduction, flexion, and external rotation of the glenohumeral joint. So for flexion, hopefully you'll be able to see, I'm going to be facing away, but I would want him to keep his shoulders down and back like with the other exercises, and just work on coming up the wall as far as he can. He can do a slight hold at the top and then coming back down. My towel doesn't slide very well. And so he could do this. If he was having pain, wherever he encounters pain, he could do an isometric hold at the top. So push into the wall, and he could also get closer to the wall if he has more range of motion. He could push in for 4 to 10 seconds, and then come back down. So that would be for flexion. For abduction, he could stand to the side like this, come up. He could do an isometric again or a hold, and come back down. And he could also go closer if he has more range of motion. And then also for these, after he kind of had full range and limited pain in unidirectional motions, I would start doing multi-directional cross-body motions. So he could work on flexion on this arm, going across the body, do an isometric, and the same thing with abduction. Could go more so to the front, more so to the back. And I want to work on endurance with this because he's going to be working 8 to 12 hour shifts, so he's going to have to be reaching overhead repetitively. So with those, I would want him to do at least like a couple sets of 15 to 20 reps if he can. Then progressing from here, I would, once he had more range of motion with less pain, I would want to work on in muscular endurance more so with something like a TheraBand. So with this, I'm just going to stand on it, but he could do something like flexion with a lighter load, so he could do more reps. Just coming up, coming up, and then coming down, making sure that scapula is stabilized in the back, and he could just do this again, higher reps, so like a couple sets of like 15 to 20. He could also do it with abduction, and then he could also do it with external rotation bilaterally to make it a little easier. Or if he attached this to something, he could do it unilaterally.